All right, Hoopers, welcome to the first video in this series on financial knowledge and how it's kind of connected to real estate. We're going to have probably 3 or 4 videos in this series, but today I'm here with Wes Porter with Gateway Mortgage. He's going to kind of help us understand what programs are available, or kind of what's his thoughts are, and for people that maybe don't think they can afford a house, or things that can help people buy their first home and things like that. So, Wes, thanks, appreciate it. Thank you for coming here. So we always like to start off with just tell us your basketball story.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here, Adam. I went to Arvada West High School, and so I'm local, and then ended up playing at the University of North Dakota for 4 years, and was able to somehow got through with a degree. But I really enjoyed my time up there. Got to be around a lot of great guys, a lot of good memories, a lot of really talented players, and I think probably my biggest takeaway being up there for 4 years is you realize once you get into some of these bigger ponds, how vast the talent gap can be.
Yep.
And so, by no means was I a star player or a focal point of an offense when I was at UND, but I realized pretty quickly to get on the floor that I was going to have to do a lot of the dirty work.
Yep.
Take on the toughest defensive assignment, be in the right position, be available at all times, do really whatever was asked of me. And like most ball players coming out of high school, that's a change because usually you're used to getting a lot of touches, a lot of looks. But I would say that's one of the most valuable lessons that I learned is truly value is not necessarily in the stat sheet or the stat box, but more so everybody can be a superstar in their role.
Absolutely.
So my goal to be, the role that I played, to be the best at that, and that was a great lesson that I learned, even though it was really difficult at times.
Yeah, you realize in basketball, as we all do, that there's levels to things. There's levels, like, hey, just because you're the best player at your local rec doesn't mean that you're a really good hooper or like that. There's always levels. There's always levels above you. But it's good that you were self-aware to realize that, like, hey, me just to get my PT, I need to be able to do some things that maybe I'm not used to this point. But
I wanted to be on the court. I love to compete. I just want to be in the fight one way or another. So for me, that was a very easy decision to make.
Love it. Well, cool. All right, well, let's get started. So I guess in general, what would be your response for people that say, I just don't think I can afford a house, or that's not for me, or I'm just going to rent, or whatever, to just get their mind open up or to understand what may be available to them?
That's a great question. The first thing I would say is that buying a home, getting qualified, getting pre-approved to buy a house, it's a process, and just because you're not where you want to be today, or you're not able to qualify for the home that you want today, there are steps that you can take. There are things that you can actively do that are within your control to get to that place to where you can buy a home. So I would just tell people that there are many avenues to get into a house, and do not. Sometimes we have this idea of this box that we have to be in. And while there are guidelines, and there's a lot of ways to get into a house.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what pays is that having people that you can trust, knowing a mortgage broker, knowing people in your life that you can trust, that you can at least have that conversation with, and have just like a consultation with, and just say, hey, this is your current financial situation. This is what kind of what your world looks like right now. If you want to get to this point, these are the steps you need to take.
Right.
But just to and be able to have that conversation with somebody that you trust, that's not going to judge you, that's not going to make you feel bad because you have a bad credit score or anything like that, but allows you to see, hey, this can be in your future, but you just need to do these things to get there.
Absolutely. I think asking questions and being willing to be a learner and say, okay, here's where I am. How do I get to where I want to be? And finding somebody you can trust to give you that roadmap is really important.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I guess I know, this channel is going to be mainly directed to Colorado because that's where I'm and that's where my real estate license is. But I guess what programs in general are available for people that don't have a down payment or a full 20% down payment? What's available to them to maybe bridge that gap or help them out?
Absolutely, that's a great question. Obviously in the Colorado market, homes have increased in value as we've seen, but with that being said, there's become really an abundance of first-time homebuyer loan programs and down payment assistance. CHAFA is a huge Colorado down payment assistance program. Metro DPA is a Denver-specific down payment assistance program, and we actually just here at Gateway rolled out our own in-house first-time homebuyer program. You can get into a home with as little as $1,000 down. So when people say I don't have the 20%, really 20% is ideal. That's great, but 5%, 3%, even as little as $1,000 down can get you into a house.
Yeah. So I think what sometimes people get stuck on is that 20% is kind of your quote unquote conventional loan. So like, just because you don't fit into that conventional box doesn't mean that you can't be able to buy a home. So all these non-conventional ways, there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, my first home was a CHAFA loan. I didn't have a down payment, but what that loan allowed me to do is allowed me to build equity in something as a stepping stone to being able to qualify for a conventional loan next time, the next house I bought. So these always can just be stepping stones. Doesn't have to be this, one way or this cookie cutter way of buying a house, having a 20% down payment, all of that. I mean, obviously, if you have that, that's going to be probably the best scenario for you. But there's also a lot of these other options available.
That's great. To kind of add to that, what I would say is, even if you do have availability, if you have some reserves, maybe you got some money invested in the stock market, some of these programs are great because if you look at the interest rates, high 2s, low 3s for a 30-year fixed program. On average, what the stock market's brought back over the last 2 to 3 years, now I'm not going to forecast what that's going to be, but you're able to make so much more money keeping some of that invested and borrowing at these low rates that they're not going to be here forever. So certainly it's something good to keep in mind of what the market looks like.
Yeah, kind of what Wes is saying there. Like in general, you're making maybe 7 to 10% of an annual return on an investment portfolio if you're doing things in mutual funds and things like that, versus paying 3%, let's just say, on an interest rate loan. There's that 4%, so that money, that every dollar potentially is worth 4 to 7% more. Now that's not saying that you should always do that and just not put that money towards a down payment. Though it's just an option where, like I said, somebody that you trust can help you, guide you through that process. So what's the application process for these types of loans? Because some people are like, man, it's gonna be a lot of paperwork. I don't, want to go through all that. How's that look like for people?
That's a great question. We've come a long way in lending just as a whole, but at Gateway we have a digital app that we shoot over to you, a link where you apply, and really what we're looking for is your personal information, date of birth, social security. You can fill it all out on your phone. It takes 10 minutes. You're going to give us a 2-year history of where you've been working, what your pay structure looks like. You're going to tell us a little bit about what you have in the bank. You get a checking account with Wells Fargo or Chase or whoever it may be. And then we're going to put your credit score and we're going to structure your loan. So if I were to send you a link right now, you could get me a full application back in 10 minutes. That kicks back over to us. Me and my team start working on structuring your loan pre-approval. And from there, we have a consultation to see, what can we do for you and how can we help you.
Great, cool. What are things that they need to keep in mind in some of these programs? Like, are there any stipulations or any things that if they're opening their mind up to a CHAFA loan or something like that? Are there any little things that as part of that program that they need to keep in mind when they're entering into one of those?
That's a good question. Really, the way that I like to approach it is, what's the best fit for you? What are your goals? If you're buying your first home and we know that cash on hand is tight, we're going to tailor that pre-approval to meet your needs. So what we like to do is start from that place, and there are some credit restrictions, with where your credit score is at. We have some debt to income ratio restrictions. Meaning how much that you have in monthly debts going out versus how much you're bringing in gross income every month. But really, we try not to get caught in the weeds with that. The most important thing is to find out, Adam, what is important to you. Is keeping your monthly payment low, keeping a tight budget, is that optimal? Or do you need to keep as much money in the bank and you want the lowest down payment available? Or are you really concerned with where the interest rate is? Maybe this is your last home that you think that you're buying and you want to cap out low rates. So it really is a relational process, because no two loans are the same. We want to be here to fit what is best for you and your family.
And I think there's so many different programs and so many like options out there for people. So again, that goes back to having someone that you trust and that is is good at their job, so they can not only give you all of the options but also be more detailed on like, hey, look, this is going to be your lowest interest option, this is going to be your like it may be your highest monthly payment, but these are the benefits of that and all of that, to give you a full look over that, kind of what I call a 30,000-foot view versus like, hey, this is what you need to go with, sign it or I can't help you.
That's a great point. It is good to have some knowledge of what you're getting into and generally what we're looking at, but it's really easy to get caught in the weeds and to get overwhelmed with information to where paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do need somebody that you trust who can put things into plain English for you.
Yep, that's great. So I guess, Wes, is there anything else with this topic or any other kind of suggestions you would like to say as far as the people that are kind of maybe on the fence about thinking if they can afford a house or not, or programs that are available, or just in general, do you have any comments or kind of final suggestions in that?
So one of the biggest things that I would tell anybody who's looking to get into the housing market is that real estate is the #1 tool for long-term financial wealth. Getting into a home is the first step if you have any ambition to build financially, leave something for your kids, build more stability just in your personal life. Find out what it takes to get into that housing, into the homeowner's market. Where you gotta get to point A. Once you get to that starting point, you're really entering a new arena and the whole world opens up. But you gotta get into that first home, because when you do, things begin to change. You start building equity. You're writing off interest. Now you've got borrowing power that you didn't have previously. So I would say building that financial long-term wealth, it starts with owning your home. That's the #1 place to go.
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm, talking to people, younger people or people that are kind of considering buying a home, it kind of breaks down to simple things of like, imagine the monthly rent payment you were doing and you get a portion of that every month you can have back later. So yeah, some of your monthly payments can be going to interest every month, but some of that's principal, which means that's the equity we're talking about. Every month you're going to be racking up money that you have at some point later. It doesn't just go away, like you're not just paying somebody else's mortgage that you would be if you're renting.
So think of it like this: if you're paying rent at $2,000 a month, it's $24,000 a year.
Yep.
Let's say you're paying a house payment $800. Let's say $1,000 is going to principal.
Yep.
So that's $12,000 that you've paid down your loan. On top of over that year, there's going to be some rate of appreciation. Typically, you're going to have market resets here and there. But what you're doing is you're creating this gap of wealth. Whereas if you're renting, you're just paying somebody else's mortgage.
Yep.
And that, to me, that's just a very easy way to look at it and say, oh wow, I'm literally just throwing money away.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess something that I would like to I always like to finish these videos with here are, one, I just want to first acknowledge you, Wes, for just being really good at being a mortgage broker and educating yourself and being in a service minded, and you're like, not only are you good at your job, but you're just a good man that I can trust being on this video, because I know that if anybody comes to you from this video or from anything else, that they're not only going to be taken care of as a human, but they're also going to be taken care of in their financial state. So I want you to realize how good of a hooper you are. this guy is one of those guys where he's shiftier than you think, and once he gets that first step on you and he gets that shoulder on you, you're kind of done, because he can either finish or he can give you a little shoulder, shoot a little pull up. He's a sneaky good shooter too, so just want to acknowledge you for that as well.
I appreciate it. I'm trying to get the last few drops out of this wet towel. So
Me too, man.
Me
Too. So thank you again. There's going to be more videos in this series. Subscribe to the channel. There's going to be stuff on social media. I'm going to do this in short little clips. Information on Gateway Mortgage and Wes and how to get connected to him is all going to be in the description as well. But I really appreciate it, Wes. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, man.